Hey everyone, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Imagine stepping into a land of immense beauty, where the promise of a fresh start is constantly shadowed by echoes of the past, and the raw, untamed nature of a nation just finding its feet.
hmm That's really the heart of it, isn't it? This tension.
It is. And that's the compelling world we're diving into today, thanks to Wendy M. Wilson's Not the Faintest Trace.
Yeah, what strikes you right away is how Wilson puts that hope, the settler's hope, right up against the challenges of actually building a life in 19th century New Zealand.
Exactly. It's this historical mystery, but it's got adventure, a bit of romance woven in there, too.
Right from the start.
And this deep dive actually comes as a special request. Our friend Lucas Fiedler on YouTube suggested it, so Lucas, thanks so much for the great suggestion.
Yeah, good one, Lucas.
Within the first few pages, you're not just getting a mystery plot, you're dropped right into this historical fiction setting that explores, well, the human condition against this fascinating backdrop.
It really draws you in.
It does. And hey, if you're enjoying this kind of deep dive, please do hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us share these talks with more people.
Definitely helps. And it's, a really smart way to write, using the mystery hook to get into these deeper themes about people adapting to a totally new world.
And the cultural interactions, or lack thereof sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. The complexities there.
So our source today is Not the Faintest Trace. It's the first book in the Sergeant Frank Hardy Mysteries series. We've put an Amazon link in the description if you want to check it out.
And it really sets up the main players.
It does. It introduces Sergeant Frank Hardy, former Imperial soldier, now with the Armed Constabulary, and Mette Jensen, this really resilient young Danish immigrant.
And their lives just get tangled up together as they navigate this changing New Zealand, caught up in all these events.
Yeah. What Wilson does so well, I think, is use their personal stories to hint at these bigger things, cultural clashes, that basic human need to belong somewhere.
And just how strong people can be when things get tough, really tough.
Right. So for this deep dive, we're looking at excerpts from the first edition. Our mission, really, is to unpack the foundations of the story, the key relationships, the historical context.
Yeah, the cultural stuff that really shapes everything.
Exactly, and the events that kind of kick it all off. Okay, let's start maybe by unpacking the central figures and the world they're in.
Sounds good. The whole series basically follows Sergeant Frank Hardy and Mette Jensen, right? Trying to find their place in this 19th century New Zealand.
Yeah, it's more than just crime solving. It's about their lives, their journeys in this developing country.
Definitely. And Hardy, he's carrying some weight from his past.
Yeah.
Former Imperial Army sergeant, then armed constabulary.
And involved in chasing Ha-Ha before. That's clearly marked him.
Yeah, you get that sense. Do you think that background makes him more understanding of the settler's fears, or maybe less so, compared to someone without that baggage?
That's a good question. Maybe both. He gets the danger because he's seen conflict, but maybe he also sees it's not so black and white because he was part of it. More nuanced, maybe.
Yeah, possibly. And then there's Mette Jensen. Young woman came all the way from Scandinavia.
With her sister Maren and brother-in-law Peter Sorensen.
And Wilson gives us these lovely little details, connecting her back to Denmark. Her apron, memories.
That longing for sugar. It sounds so simple, but it says a lot.
It really does. It grounds her, shows what she's lost, but also highlights the difference in this new place.
Yeah.
The hardships.
Yeah.
Makes her feel very real.
Yeah, relatable. And where are they living? It's this little clearing, right? Near a sawmill, carved out of the bush.
And the bush itself feels huge, kind of threatening.
Yeah, the settlers see it that way. Whispers of trolls.
And the very real fear of Ha-Ha.
And then there's a town, Palmerston, nearby, but still feels a bit distant from their clearing.
That contrast works so well. The small, exposed clearing against the massive sort of unknown bush creates vulnerability instantly.
Yeah, highlights that pioneer struggle, and that fear of the Ha-Ha is always simmering under the surface.
Which, wasn't unfounded historically. The conflict was real. So Metzger's fear, when it comes up, it's rooted in something genuine for the time.
Okay, so this is where things really start moving. These early encounters ramp up the tension. Mette has this pretty intense moment in the bush.
Why, the piglet?
Yeah, she kills a wild piglet for food shows. She's tough, resourceful. But then, bam, she runs into a Maori man and a Hera.
With the facial moko.
And instantly, her fear just spikes. Ha-ha.
That scene just lays bare the cultural divide, doesn't it? Her instant leap to danger because of Moko,
Hmm.
it shows the prejudice, the lack of understanding.
Yeah, fear and, well, bad information doing their work.
Definitely.
And then, almost right after, she bumps into Sergeant Frank Hardy in the same bush.
Talk about timing.
And she's still spooked, so she actually mistakes him for the Maori man at first.
Oh, wow. Awkward.
Totally. Leading to this moment of, like, relief, but also major embarrassment when it gets sorted out. And we get a little peek at Frank's first impression of her in all this chaos.
And that first impression matters, right, for how their relationship develops. He sees her scared, yes, but also capable. She
Yeah.
just killed a pig.
Right. Even when she's vulnerable, there's that strength. Sets the stage for, respect maybe, and something more later.
Yeah, definitely. And this whole sequence just hammers home the settlers' anxiety, the misconceptions about Maori people.
Especially the ha-ha fear. Marin voices it. The kids have stories about trolls.
Which is probably their way of processing the adult's fear.
Probably. And you contrast all that with Frank, whose view seems, well, more grounded, more informed, maybe from his past.
Exactly. His history lets him see past the simple, fear-based stories some of the newer settlers are telling. He gets the complexity a bit more.
So now this background of uncertainty, it gets another layer. A real mystery kicks in that pulls Frank and Mette together.
The missing boys.
Yeah, two young Scandinavian guys, Paul Nissen and Jens Lund. The Yaya.
They vanished after crossing the river near their cousin Nude's tent.
And right away, there are theories flying around.
Drowned. Or taken by Haha. Caps right back into those existing fears. Shows the different dangers they felt surrounded by.
And Frank gets pulled into the search, asked by the relatives, Nissen and Sorensen.
Which leads them to Nude, the cousin.
And that meeting with Nude is interesting. He's really cagey about admitting he gave the boys alcohol.
Yeah, that hesitation is a big clue, isn't it? It points towards maybe an accident fueled by drink, human error, not necessarily something more sinister.
Or maybe something he feels guilty about, wants to hide.
Possibly. Adds that layer of potential cover-up.
And then the search turns up something grim. Paul's body is found in the river.
Identified by his watch and shirt.
Confirmed drowning, but Jens is still missing.
So, partial answers, but still this hanging question mark keeps attention high. Who knows what happened to Jens?
Exactly. Now, alongside this mystery, Wilson keeps exploring these cultural interactions, the misunderstandings.
Like the visit to the Pepioapa.
Right. Frank and Mette go there looking for info on the boys, and Frank's ability to speak Maori, his knowledge of customs, it's crucial here.
It totally changes the dynamic. Instead of suspicion, they actually get a welcoming reception, largely because Frank knows how to approach them respectfully.
They meet Moana, the chief's wife, and others, and it's surprisingly warm.
A real contrast to the fear Mette felt earlier.
And there's that lovely bit of cultural exchange. Mette learns about the earth oven cooking.
And she gets a Maori name, Hainromati, summer maid, because of her hair.
That's such a powerful moment. It's not just friendly, it's like a symbol of potential connection, pushing back against the fear.
Yeah, it signifies acceptance, bridging that gap. Shows what's possible with open interaction.
But then the tension snaps right back. Anahara shows up again.
Perform in the Kamanehaka.
And Mette's fear instantly returns. It really highlights the gap, the settlers seeing a war dance, not understanding the haka's real significance.
And Frank's reaction is key there. He's armed, it's tense, but he doesn't shoot. He holds back.
Shows his growing understanding, maybe, respect, even when it looks threatening from a settler viewpoint.
Definitely. It underlines that theme of overcoming prejudice with knowledge.
Okay, so the narrative then shifts a bit, introduces a threat from, well, within the settler community itself.
Gottlieb Carlson.
Yeah, this road worker. He meets Mette at the Monrad's dance, dances with her, and then develops this creepy obsession.
It's a different kind of danger. Not the unknown bush or the other culture, but something unpleasant right there among them. Shows the social complexities.
And it escalates fast. He doesn't just make her uncomfortable. He attacks her at her home.
Which leads to Frank stepping in.
Yeah, physical fight between Carlson and Frank. Frank defending Mette.
Really cements Carlson as the villain here and raises the stakes personally for Frank and Mette.
And the stakes get really high later. Carlson ambushes them in the Manawatu Gorge, of all places. Super treacherous spot.
Oh, that scene is intense.
He tries to force them off a cliff. It's pure survival mode.
And the resolution, Frank uses a tomahawk.
In self-defense, yeah. Strikes Carlson, who falls into the river. It's incredibly dramatic. You can just picture the terror trapped there.
It's a huge turning point. Forces them to rely on each other completely. Shows their grit under pressure.
And the irony of Frank using a tomahawk, given the settlers' fear of them.
Right. And then later, a body is found in the river. Carlson's.
But initially, they think it might be one of the missing boys. More confusion, more uncertainty.
Just layers upon layers of unease in the community, mistaken identity, loss. It really paints a picture.
So, amidst all this danger and mystery, you really see this bond forming between Frank and Mette.
Definitely. Sharing these intense experiences, the search, the pause visit, the ambush.
Pushes them together. You see moments where they support each other, hints of deeper feelings starting.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Facing danger like that, vulnerability, it can forge powerful connections, even between people from different worlds.
And you see their courage, their resilience, qualities that would draw people together.
And Mette, she really grows, doesn't she? From killing that piglet early on to facing Carlson down.
Yeah, she starts as this young immigrant in a scary new place, but she finds this incredible strength, adapts, fights back.
Well, Frank's dealing with his own stuff, too. His past, maybe unresolved things about his brother we learn more about.
And these obvious growing feelings for Mette, he's wrestling with it all.
Adds depth to him. His soldier past, maybe some trauma, mixing with these new emotions, his role here. How does the past affect new relationships?
And then there's that really moving part with Marin, Mette's sister, the difficult childbirth.
And she has twin boys.
And she names them Paul and Jens after the missing young men. Wow.
It's heavy, but also hopeful. Like honoring the lost, but looking forward to rebirth, maybe?
Yeah, a powerful symbol. Now, shifting gears slightly, Wilson also weaves in the bigger picture. The politics, the society of the time.
Just touches, but important ones. Like government policies on Maori land, the settlers arriving. Sir Julius Vogel gets a mention.
Right. It grounds the personal stories in that larger historical context. Colonization, changing land, cultural friction, it's all there in the background.
We also see the armed constabulary's role, the social divides.
Attitudes towards Maori, immigrants, even Chinese workers are hinted at.
And the practical stuff, like building roads through the 70-mile bush, shows the physical transformation happening.
Paints a picture of a nation really under construction, with all the associated tensions.
Exactly.
Okay, let's loop back to Anahara, the Maori man Mette first feared.
Yeah, he becomes much more complex as we learn more.
Turns out his actions aren't random, they're driven by revenge. For past wrongs, terrible injustices.
Specifically, a chief being killed violently, women and children mistreated by colonial forces.
It makes him not necessarily justified, but understandable, driven by grief and history, a reminder that the past isn't past.
Absolutely. He's not just a scary native. He's a person reacting to deep historical wounds, highlights the consequences of those conflicts.
And we hear about a specific horrific incident, a Corporal Adams desecrating the chief's head.
Which seems to be the catalyst for Anahira's specific rage. It's brutal, and it explains the depth of his need for retribution.
And his attacks are targeted. He goes after Frank, but also Captain Porter.
Another former soldier involved in that past conflict.
Shows how interconnected it all is. Past actions echoing down, endangering people in the present.
Yeah, the past is never really buried.
So Anahira's arc, at least in these early parts, ends with his capture at the Papia'a Pa.
And the implication is he's headed for prison in Wanganui.
Which resolves the immediate threat he posed.
But maybe not the underlying issues his story represents. This historical injustice, the conflict that remains.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into the start of Not the Faintest Trace, we've met Frank and Mette, seen their world take shape in 19th century New Zealand.
Explored those initial encounters, the community tensions, the mystery of the missing boys.
And Wilson weaves it all together so well. The mystery plot with the history, the cultural context.
Gives you a real feel for the challenges and, I guess, the opportunities of that colonial life. And we've seen the start of Frank and Mette's relationship blooming amidst all the chaos.
Yeah. And those key themes really stand out. Cultural understanding versus misunderstanding, the realities of life for settlers and Maori, and just that human resilience, finding your way when things are tough.
It really makes you think about that period, the human stories within it.
So maybe a few things for listeners to chew on after this. How do Mette's initial fears and the settlers' prejudices stack up against how things actually play out when they interact with Maori characters later?
That's a good one. And what about Mette's journey? Adapting to New Zealand, but holding on to her Danish roots. What does that say about resilience and finding your identity in a new place?
Ooh, yeah. And Frank, with his past, his feelings for Met, what kind of future could even be possible for them in this changing landscape? Lots to think about.
Definitely questions that make you want to keep reading.
Absolutely. And huge thanks again to Lucas Fiedler for pointing us towards this book.
Yeah, it was a really great exploration. Thanks, Lucas.
We definitely encourage everyone listening to grab a copy of Not the Faintest Trace. The Amazon links in the description. Dive into the Sergeant Frank Hardy mysteries.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, share your thoughts in the comments and tell us what else you'd like us to cover in future deep dives.